Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Ranking Member, and thank you for having the initial hearing, and it's good to see you again, Mr. Secretary. If this had been last year, you and I went round and round over the Federal Highways Memorandum of Guidance in terms of where dollars should be spent. And we had a disagreement, but I'm glad to see you saw the light and pulled the memo down because it was causing a lot of angst in terms of our state DOTs being able to move forward. So I also want to thank you. Shelley Moore has been very conversive with us and many other members here on in the Senate, and I'm glad to see we have a permanent person in there now, a confirmed person, so he's doing a good job. But I am hearing that some of the project grant agreements across any are taking increasingly longer to complete. These types of delays can obviously cost project costs, delay much, and time's a ticking on the infrastructure bill. I'm also told that the grant debriefs for people that don't get granted that are offered by the department are becoming less and less helpful. So historically, these have been able to equip our applicants to be able to reapply and then in the following years to have a much more successful and impactful application. So I would hope that, I guess I'm concerned about just the delays and then these debriefs. Want to bring them to your attention because they're being brought to my attention, and ask that you would identify additional ways that we can move these projects quicker, and also that we can help with the debriefs to make sure they're as substantive as they can be.
Well, thanks. The goal of compressing the timeline between an award announcement and a grant agreement is one that I enthusiastically share. There are a number of steps, of course, that have to happen. It's taxpayer money, but we've got to find ways to streamline that process without losing any of the fidelity to the reasons why it's there. And that's something that we take very seriously because we want to get not just the projects identified, but of course, to get them built. Now, some steps that we've already taken to try to ease that include steps to reduce the number of independent processes and consolidate them, and to work with project sponsors as they're getting through NEPA, for example. We'll often have a project that is not yet finalized its NEPA process, but already identify it for funding. We need to make sure, or sometimes they don't even have the engineering, the final design work done. And that can be necessary to sign a grant agreement. So we're going to do everything we can on our end. But we also want to work with project sponsors to help them do what they have to on their end, recognizing that even if it's a requirement that they must meet, we're not going to sit back and just say, you're on your own, good luck meeting those requirements. We really want to partner with them to get that done. Likewise with the debriefs, that's something that I consider very important for unsuccessful project applicants who often turn into successful applicants later on. Would love offline to get more information about some of the specific feedback you're getting, so that we can examine that and make sure the process is useful.
So it seems it is while the desire may be to shorten, it seems as though the desire is not quite being met because it's becoming increasingly long. So let's talk about one federal decision. That's in the IIJA. We're looking at this hopefully in a permitting in energy and other projects. Again, concerns as to whether you're adhering to one federal decision, whether it's working the way it's supposed to, because this is supposed to be shortening the timelines. It's supposed to be more efficient. It's not skirting any environmental regulations at all. And I don't know. I have frustrations on it, and I don't want to recommend it in a permitting bill if we can't, you're sort of the test case here and coming up a bit short. So could you speak to one federal decision?
Well, we're certainly working to implement one federal decision.
But that's been years, right?
How's that?
That's been years, even before you got there.
Well, I know there was the rule version. Now there's the legislatively mandated version. We're able to act within days to get that first provision out around the categorical exclusions. We're tracking toward those averages that are called for by those provisions in the law, and also trying to make sure there's more transparency and clarity with our permitting processes, including the federal permitting dashboard and the interagency organizations that have been set up to try to make sure that there is clear information and as smooth a process as can be. Again, I think part of what's at play here is that it's not only the things that we're doing as an agency, and there are many, but also how we can make sure the project sponsors are able to do what has to happen on their end, especially when you're working with newer or smaller communities that may be new to receiving federal funds, but that should be no barrier to them succeeding and delivering these projects, and that's important to us.
Yeah, it's pretty discouraging when you talk to a federal agency who can't get and I'm not saying this is DOT, these are different agencies, but they're projects that are infrastructure development, roads, water projects, and the two agencies aren't even talking, you know, where you have to get permits from both of them, say Fish and Wildlife, Corps of Engineers, EPA. That's the whole point of one federal decision, is to pull those in and have somebody, but I still think there is too much disconnect between these federal agencies, and I'm not even talking about how they interplay with the state ones or even the private developers, because that's an issue as well. At least we could do is have our federal agencies interacting and talking with one another to speed the project. So thank you for working on that. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.